Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Kathy and I with more political kind of astrology today. We managed to squeeze this call in between my travels. I won't be here again next week, but after that, I'm home for ages. Don't know about you. Are you home for ages after that?
We'll see.
Yeah, I know. Life's like that at the moment, right? So, anyway, I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology. You can find me on YouTube, on Facebook, and places. And I am going to put a link below. I'm having a little launch party on November the 5th, which is the full moon in Taurus, but it's also bonfire night in the UK, Guy Fawkes night. So I just felt like having fun. I'm launching the official launch of my new website and fun things. And I'm going to do a giveaway of a signed book and things like that. So it's going to be on November the 5th, live streaming everywhere at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So come and join me, and who knows, you might win the book, but there might be some other surprises too. So, Kathy.
Excellent.
Mm.
I'm Kathy Biehl. My website is empowermentunlimited.net, where I have some witchy clothing that's suitable for year-round for some of us. Also, uh, so I have there we
Village
go, Village
Witch.
Witch. That's a good one. Uh, anyway, I have my forecast there. My YouTube channel, if you're watching this on Louise's channel, is Professional Aquarian. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Biehl, where I have a lot of explanations of all of the water energy, which we'll be talking about some today. That's going to be with us until December. So for not very much, for much, much less than the cost of a reading, you can get information about that.
Mhm. And we're only going to go out till about a month with the bigger aspects this time. Kathy went over a lot of them last week. We both do week ahead forecasts with more detailed breakdowns and more. So, if you want more detail in the astrology aspects, you can look at the other videos too, because we've got a lot to cover. And Kathy's got a lot
Right.
of news to cover, and a lot of it's probably going to be a bit of a surprise to me because I was away at an astrology retreat for 4 days, and so I've been a bit out of the loop. So,
Okay, now as always, this is not an exhaustive, although it is exhausting, and it's not everything that's happened. But what I have done is I keep track of news items that match the forecasts that we've been given. And this week, I have a lot of evidence of Mercury and Mars teaming together in Scorpio, also of the T squared to Jupiter in Cancer, the puffing up of that on all no King's Day, and the new agreements and relationships coming out of the Libra new moon. So that's kind of the framework. Okay, here we go. Uh, ICE was ordered in Illinois to wear body cams. That's Mercury Mars. The Ninth Circuit has ruled in two different cases that it's okay to federalize the National Guard to protect ICE facilities, but they've kept a block on the Texas National Guard. Um, this has ramifications about the president's ongoing power over states. A federal court has permanently blocked withholding $34 million in funding for New York City subway security. All right. In the political persecution of enemies department, John Bolton has been indicted on 18 counts, many of which involve the use of classified information, which parallels what Hegseth did on Signal in March. And I did mention that the March lunar eclipse was in the mix on No King's Day. Joyce Vance's October 17th Substack breaks down the counts. This is not the same as what's going on with Comey. Um, Meanwhile, in Comey's case, James Comey's case, the court has ordered the Department of Justice to give him all the communications between Trump and the DOJ. And meanwhile, there's now noise about prosecuting Obama for election interference. And Brennan, who was Obama's director of national intelligence, I think, has been referred for. Been given a criminal referral. I can't keep track of why. All right,
wow.
uh, ceasefire. Mercury Mars. The ceasefire in Gaza was jeopardized by last Thursday when Hamas reasserted control of the streets in Gaza, started publicly executing people of collaborating with Israel. Israel started striking Gaza and pauses aid, claiming Hamas broke the ceasefire. Ongoing. Pope Leo has
Mm.
announced he is going to shut down Opus Dei. This is monumental. An admiral has resigned over the Venezuelan airstrikes, killing people in the Pacific who are, I'm sorry, in the Atlantic who are civilians. Meanwhile, we're now doing it in the Pacific. More with the monetary aspect of Mercury, Mars, and the military. Trump is paying the military out of funds that were allocated for something else, which he does not have the constitutional power to do. Colombia's president has accused the U.S. of killing a civilian fisherman who was displaying a distress flag. So Trump's response was to cut off aid to Colombia and impose tariffs. More Mercury, Mars. Trump told Zelensky that he would give Ukraine tomahawks, and he talked. And then he told Zelensky to give up the Donbass region, or Russia will destroy Ukraine. Then Mark Rutte of NATO visited him, and now he's threatening sanctions on Russia's biggest oil producer. Meanwhile, the Netherlands has limited sharing intelligence with the U.S. That's Mercury, Mars in Scorpio because of suspected leaks to the Kremlin. We have a whistleblower of an ex-DOJ, an ex-prosecutor who was fired. He says he was instructed to lie about Kilmar Albrego Garcia. And there's a lot of evidence of attorneys lying to federal courts. All right, now, Mercury, Mars in Scorpio. This is just ongoing, and it's moving into a grand trine in water, which I talked about last week, and that we'll be talking about. Massive, and this involves things flying through the air and machinery. There was a massive denial of distribution error involving Amazon Web Services. Russia and China were suspected for being involved. China releases a claim that the NSA was carrying out cyber attacks a couple of years ago on its National Time Center. So who knows? Watch that one. But meanwhile, United grounded all of its flights nationwide due to system outages. Now, going back to the No King's March, there was a T-square to Jupiter and Cancer on that day, and I said that could be record-setting with the people in the street. In fact, it was the largest protests ever against an American president, 1 million in New York City alone. The initial estimate was 7 million, then that was up to 8.1 million, and now I'm seeing 12 million. But this led to the weirdest playing out of the imagery of Mercury, Mars in Scorpio. Mercury, things flying through the air, Mars, the military, Scorpio. Trump released an AI video of him in a crown flying a jet fighter, dropping liquid feces on protesters.
Emptying his
Sometimes
diaper,
astrology
I
is,
said. Sorry.
oh yeah, but sometimes astrology is so literal, it's
I
scary.
know.
This also
Yeah.
this also fits the Marines shooting missiles across the highway in
Mm.
California, and a shell hit a vehicle in Vance's protective detail, proving
Oh.
that irony is the overriding deity of the universe. I said on that day the March lunar eclipse was going to be echoed because the moon was at the exact degree at noon in DC. And I mentioned the wrecking ball that was set loose in March. And now we have a literal one. Trump has he's knocking down the West Wing for supposedly his ballroom. He had said I'm sorry, the East Wing. He had said the
Mm.
East Wing would not be touched. He's destroyed the public entrance and all of the First Lady's rooms. And this on the Libra new moon, Venus ruled all the women's areas, and all without permission from the National Capital Planning Commission. Treasury employees have been instructed not to share photos of the demolition for security reasons. Photos are getting out. Now he has admitted he's demolishing the entire East Wing, and CBS has news reports he's upgrading the bunker that's below it, Meanwhile, late yesterday, the DC Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection issued a stop work order. There are no permits for this. Asbestos is being let out into the air. And what are the security implications of the building being gaping open? All right, a few more things. He commuted George Santos's sentence and forgave Santos's obligation to repay victims. On the Libra new moon, setting new relationships, new agreements, he filed a claim for $230 million with the Department of Justice for the prosecutions and investigations that have taken place of him. Here's the complication. All of the attorneys in line to pass on this represented him in private practice in those prosecutions and investigations. In a universe that had a working legal system, they would be conflicted out of passing on this. We know what's going to happen. All right. The New York Attorney General has launched an ICE abuse database that citizens can use to contribute photos and videos because ICE is now in New York City. There were a whole series of Nazi things, pro-Nazi and racist texts were leaked from Trump's nominee to lead the Office of Special Counsel, who actually calls himself a Nazi. His nomination has been withdrawn. Meanwhile, there is a candidate somewhere in the Northeast who has a Nazi tattoo on his body. He's claiming he's getting rid of it. A few more things. More universities have rejected Trump's loyalty oath. University of Pennsylvania, Dartmouth, University of Arizona, University of Virginia initially said no, and it has entered into some kind of modified version of it. On the Libra new moon, Arizona filed suit against Mike Johnson to force swearing in Arizona's new representative, who is, by the way, a woman, Libra. Trump has now declared Black Lives Matter and Antifa domestic terrorist organizations. Everyone get your membership cards out. More Mercury Mars in Scorpio. Hegseth has banned all communications with Congress from the military, including the Joint Chiefs of Staff, unless they get DoD approval first. All right, now we're moving on to the main topic that we're going to explore today. The driver for a whole lot of this that's going on. Oh, and of course, the House is still not in session because of this. The New York Times laid out the email between Epstein and one of his largest clients, Leon Black, and their business relationships. Black was a founder of Apollo Global Management, which is a very large money company. And he laid out Epstein pressured this man for tens of millions of dollars a year for tax services. But more importantly, the New York Times has found out that these men had shared bank accounts. Put a pin in that. The canary in the coal mine, however, is Prince Andrew. As in advance of the publication of Virginia Giuffre's memoirs, he resigned his royal titles. It was announced that authorities are actively looking into allegations that he asked his police protection officer, which is a taxpayer-funded position, to uncover information about her. Her book came out on the Libra new moon, Libra words, woman. Prince William has said Andrew will not be at the coronation. Protests are mounting against his occupying a royal residence for 20 years rent-free. And over Giuffre's ghostwriter says she has possession of all of the tapes that led to the book, and she has the name.
Virginia's ghost.
Virginia's, right.
Yeah.
And that she possesses all of the tapes and all of the names of people whose identity got blurred. And here on this Michael Wolff, author Michael Wolff, is suing Melania because she threatened a $1 billion libel suit over his reporting about her connections to Epstein. There we go. Good. And there will be more this week. There'll be more before this video goes up, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. What else did I
So
see? There
you
was
will
something
notice
else.
people. Oh, yeah, when it comes to you, but this is a reflection of how incredibly intense all the aspects are, and the fact that that all of this water, which we're immersed in, is being activated again and again and again in
Mm-hmm.
Scorpio, which is salacious, it's corrupt, it's crimes, it's stuff we don't normally talk about in public, it's power.
Mm-hmm. It's often sexual power as well. So,
Hmm.
yeah. And also the Cardinal Grand Cross that Kathy mentioned at the start. So that's activated again later. We'll talk about that a little bit. And, well, there's, and some of the other things that Kathy mentioned are going to be revisited as well as Mercury and Jupiter go retrograde. So, yay. So, it's going to be an interesting time. And I knew what I thought of. Eric Adams has just endorsed Cuomo in the New York
Oh, isn't
City
that?
mayoral race. Yeah, I can't see that that's good for Cuomo, to be honest. But anyway, so more news. But anyway, and there is a lot of things going back to March, as Kathy said, to these eclipses, but also the Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde
Mhm.
back in March that went from Aries back into Pisces. All of that period is being reactivated over and over and over and over and over. Okay, so
One more factor
yeah.
in that, and that
Hmm.
is Neptune retrograding back to 29 Pisces, which it occupied for that month. So we have
Hmm.
multiple influences turning our attention back to
Yep.
not done. We're not
Oh,
done.
yes. Yeah, I'll be mentioning that in the aspects. So I'm actually starting the aspects and I'm really going to rattle through these, as I said. So this was the new moon, and we are going to look at this chart with Epstein, Virginia, and Prince Andrew. But I just wanted to show it again because this is the Cardinal Grand Cross with Eris, who's the table turner, Chiron, both the wound and the healer. Jupiter expands everything in the sign of family, but also kind of nurturing and mothering and basis of security. And then Libra, women, and but justice as well, balance. So that's going to be activated again because Venus is moving through Libra, her own sign, and she's moving fast. And we also start with this water grand trine that's just going to be activated over and over. At this point, we start with Jupiter here, Saturn over in Pisces, and the Mercury Mars conjunction, which was just passed on that new moon. So just moving to the next day, Neptune
May I
moved
say,
back in.
may I say one thing
Sorry.
before you go?
Mm.
Can you go back to that chart one more time?
Mhm.
It's a T square.
Oh,
It's a
what did I
cardinal
call
T
it?
square. Grand
What did
cross.
I?
I don't want to
Oh,
confuse
sorry.
people, but Grand
Cardinal
cross.
T.
Yeah.
Sorry, T
Yeah.
square. Yep.
Everybody gets slack, all right? All of this water
Hmm.
energy has us immersed in who knows what. So everyone's going to be really spacey.
Oh, and Neptune is squaring my ascendant after it moves back into Pisces, which it just has. There it's moved back into Pisces, 29 degrees, which it will never leave that degree. And Saturn is will move back to 25 Pisces, which is all of that area was where Venus and Mercury went retrograde, and the eclipses happened back in March. So that's just ongoing, really. We just, but it's also going to be activated over and over by this lovely water grand trine. So the sun also will move into Scorpio water sign as well, or has done late on October the 22nd. So on to today. And Jupiter will exactly square Chiron. I'm not going to emphasize all of these. This is just to tell you that, all of these aspects keep aspecting each other. And Jupiter on October the 23rd is starting to slow down for its retrograde, but it's not going retrograde yet. On October the 24th, the Sun will move to 1 Scorpio and will square Pluto. And as we've mentioned before, every time a planet changes signs, it activates these slower moving energies that are aspecting each other for months: Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. Sometimes at the 0, 1 degree of signs, but now Neptune's moved back and Uranus is going to move back. So they're just being it's just ongoing, really. We could go into greater detail, but we really don't have time because it's really detailed and a lot. So, but on October the 25th, Mercury trotting along as well, but it's in the shadow of its retrograde right now. It's crossing the degrees that it will travel back to. And so Mercury will exactly trine Saturn. So this water grand trine is really kind of intense as Mercury and Mars move up to aspect Saturn and Jupiter. Okay, so
That
anything
brings
else you want?
communication into it. So
Mm,
there's actually a
and
sequence
secrets
of
revealed. Yeah.
right. There's a sequence
Hmm.
of bodies that will move into that Scorpio point on the
Hmm.
trine. Jupiter and Saturn, with an assist from Neptune, are gonna. They're stationed. I mean, they're
Yeah.
static. I guess the way to put it. And then there's going
Mm,
to be a parade of bodies bringing different features, different aspects. So the first one is
mm.
investigative revelations, information, and then
Action
mhm,
with Mars. But I invite people to really tune into what water does with this water grand trine. Water literally kind of erodes and reveals what's underneath. I always kind of think that's a good visual for people to think, if water's going through a canyon, it kind of erodes away and reveals things that have been long buried. So. Anyway, on to October the 28th, in the spirit of moving quickly through, Mars action joins the party, but Mercury has moved to the 29th degree as well. So is the planet of communication and news is aspecting Neptune, that's stuck at that 29th degree, the last degree of the zodiac, kind of bringing things out. And Mars, the action planet, will drive. I always think he's a bit of a psychic surgeon in Scorpio as well, can really dig into what's been underneath. And the exact aspect to Jupiter is on the 28th, but it's also aspecting Saturn by then, pretty much.
may I
So,
add one thing?
mm, mhm,
So my one thing I want to add is that with Mercury aspecting Neptune, we could be hearing a lot more about things happening in the water. We could be hearing a
mhm,
lot more about attacks on on civilians
mhm.
in the water, on
Oh,
fishermen, and there
yeah.
could be a lot of conversation about what the tax cuts or what the government shutdown is threatening to do,
And
and the actual impact on
mm,
people coming from
and
it.
yeah, the revealing of actually what is happening as well as what could happen if the bill passes. I think both sides could be more and more out there. Anyway, on to the 29th, October the 29th. By the way, by then, Venus is moved to 19 Libra. You're starting to see this cardinal T square, not Grand Cross, come out again. But on the 29th, exactly, Mercury does trine Neptune and then moves into Sagittarius for a short while because Mercury is going to go retrograde. But this is, Mercury is going to start seeking truth, but then is going to start um, reflecting and reviewing on news and covering old ground of things that have been happening about now, really. So, also on that day, yeah, there was the Mercury trine to Neptune, first of all. Then we have, I'm going to ignore that, Mars will exactly trine Saturn. Mars and Saturn together are really driven, right? They are really kind of forceful. And in water, they're kind of going to cause waves, I think, almost like tidal waves, would you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And there
And
could be
then,
something
yeah.
about government very much going on with that,
Mm-hmm.
or the military. Both of those things are, or whatever in the world ICE is doing, that could be part of it too. I want to throw one other thing in.
Mm.
When Mercury moves into Sagittarius, notice that it's opposite Uranus,
Oh, I was
and
just about to mention that
oh, I'm so
one.
sorry. Well, and then it's also in a moving into a window of opportunity with
Hmm.
Pluto in um,
Hmm.
Aquarius.
Mm.
So watch for really sudden information coming about computer systems or sudden breaks in computer systems,
Hmm.
international news about technology or computer systems. Hint,
Mm.
hint, something
Hmm.
coming from a foreign country that talks
Mm.
about things that happened.
Mm. So yeah, I was just about to say that one. So I'll move on because we've we've got lots to
Sorry,
cover.
sorry, sorry, sorry.
It's okay. So because I go in time order on my list. So, so on to the 30th, that's when Mercury actually hits Pluto as well. So, but it's still, opposing Uranus and in aspect to Pluto. And just adding another layer, Uranus is the modern ruler or guide for Aquarius as well. So, we've got this ongoing kind of fire air kind of energy, which is very wildfire. And so it's going to be really interesting. So, yay. On to the 31st. And the sun over here in Scorpio has been a little bit quiet, but I'm going to add in that the sun will square Pallas Athena, because if people remember, Pallas Athena stationed direct and sat at 6 Aquarius for quite a while, which is the south node of the USA. And Pallas Athena is, amongst other things, she's strategy and justice, wise strategic justice, but she is also in the sign of the people, and she, in the myth, used to slay her enemies, which were usually men. Okay, so um, and also, though, at the same time, I find these newer energies that I use working together a lot in many ways. Pholus is that cause and effect, but also kind of Pandora's box kind of energy. So almost at exactly the same time, like, just within hours of each other, the sun in Scorpio, the secrets, the manipulation, will also aspect Pholus in the sign of institutions and structures. So the fact they're happening together, the sun, which is the core of everything, who knows what else is going to come to light that we will go, no, I need justice on this one. So,
Well, there
and
could be some
then,
last minute, something very last minute involving the budget
could be. Yeah,
with
yeah.
that.
Hmm. And then on November the 2nd, I'm going to rush forward to that. Venus has moved all the way to 24 degrees. So look at this cardinal T square then around that beginning of November month as we head towards a full moon as well. So energy's getting heightened, right? And Venus in her own sign, the sign of justice, harmony, balance, peace as well, but also war, because Libra rules war as well, and it's almost an exact T square there. I heard that the No Kings people were already planning another one, and I don't know when it's going to be. Do you?
No, I don't, but this is
Mm,
the same energy.
it is exactly.
Kings.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So maybe it's going to happen quite soon. So, also on November the 2nd, it's a busy day. Mercury now still in Sagittarius, but really slowing down to station retrograde. So, you can see here it says slow. Mercury will actually make an exact trine to Ceres in Aries, which is also slowing down to station direct at 2 degrees Aries, which is the current Venus star point, which means Venus and the Sun were conjunct when Venus was retrograde, and they were conjunct on March the 22nd, going back to that time, right? But also, Venus is disappearing behind the sun at this stage. So I always find, and then Mercury will disappear behind the sun. I always feel those superior conjunctions when these two planets, Mercury and Venus, go behind the sun. I always feel like when they emerge, more stuff emerges as well. So
Mm.
I just wanted to kind of add that layer, but especially because Mercury and Venus were both retrograde at the same time in March, and they both went from about, well, Venus from 10 Aries, Mercury from 9. They both went back into Pisces. And so that area of the chart is activated in many, many ways. So it's kind of huge. So exactly on November the 2nd, Jupiter will square Eris, the table turner. So this cardinal T square is really strong at the beginning of November. Do you want to say anything else about that?
No, thank you.
No.
No.
And then on November the 3rd, Mars reaches the last degree, which is also, very powerful degree of change, really, and trines Neptune exactly. And say, okay, so that's kind of endings, I think, really, things emerging that are going to change because Mars will move forward and towards Neptune. It's also the kind of beginning of the end of this Mars Neptune cycle. So more erosion, more things coming to light. Um, and it can be a challenging time, those last degrees, but we want stuff to come to light. So Mars on November the 4th, it doesn't quite show it here, but Mars will join Mercury in Sagittarius, and Mars will then oppose Uranus as well and approach that aspect that Mercury just made with Uranus and Pluto. So the action following the news, the communication, as Kathy already kind of pointed out. So, any more to say on that one? Mm-hmm.
This is the day of some um, elections, and
Oh,
the moon's on Kamala's moon, and Venus is on Kamala's
mm,
sun. That's all I'll say.
mm-hmm. Yep. So on the 5th, we have the full moon that's going to be at 13 degrees Taurus Scorpio, which I absolutely love because 13 is the number of the witch or the unlucky because it's the feminine, so to speak. So more female stuff coming up. And on that day, Vesta, who I'm not going into all the asteroid aspects, but I think it's significant because Vesta gets to 24 degrees of Sagittarius, which is activating this cardinal T square. And it's
Mhm.
exact to Chiron and Eris, the table shaker and wound and healing. And Vesta is the state and our inner flames. So, you know, um, true. And it's also in the sign of the courts and the justice and natural laws. So, well, because people are fighting against what this administration is doing. And I think they will be successful ultimately. But yes, a lot of damage done on the way. November the 6th, Mars now exactly sextiles Pluto. So activating that aspect again. And Venus on the 6th over here is actually at the focal point of another finger of destiny from Uranus to Neptune, which are still in aspect, even though slightly out of sign. So but this is, at beginning and endings because she will move into Scorpio out of her own sign and be exact to Uranus. But before that, she's exact to Neptune. And of course, it's activating that March energy yet again, but this is also activating the 21st new moon that we've just had, amongst other things. So more fingers of destiny pointing at Venus. Any more on that one?
What I'll say is, with Mars being in Sagittarius, uh, with making the same contacts that Mercury did earlier, and Sagittarius having to do with politics and with foreign relations, and with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini having to do with communications and with technology, there could be more about foreign intel, more about
Mm,
foreign interference, more about something happening that has a global impact on the internet, like Amazon Web Services going down. There could be
mm,
something disrupted at that time as well.
yeah, yeah. And we've had a few, haven't we? A few outages.
Hmm.
Snapchat apparently was down. I never used that, but anyway. And so Venus then moves into Scorpio at the end of November the 6th. And then after the full moon, on November the 7th, a bit later in the day, Uranus will re enter Taurus. So now we've had Neptune and Saturn retrograding back into the signs they are going to finish their journey in. And now Uranus will retrograde back to 27 Taurus, which is very close to our goal, which has been very significant, but we're not going to look at that yet. But these are finishings, in my opinion, don't you? The finishings
Hmm.
of long standing stories because they've all been working together. And then Venus in Scorpio now. And I like Venus in Scorpio. I know she's supposed to be in detriment, but I have her and I love her. And but Venus is she often, well, a lot of these planets when they travel through Scorpio, but Venus particularly, I think when we're going through what we're going through now, is going to reveal things about sexual manipulation of women and children. Mm-hmm. Yep. May not come out right away, but she's digging deep into it, Because remember, I said she's going to go behind the sun. And then she will actually come up and square Pluto, which is the modern guide or ruler for Scorpio. So more secrets and shadow being dug up. On to
And more,
no.
more having
Sorry,
to
go
do
on.
with money and taxes. More having to do
Mm.
with money and taxes also.
Yep. Yeah. True. Yeah. Mars on November the 8th will trine Ceres, and that will actually happen just before Ceres goes back to that 2-degree mark, going back to March again. So,
Keep going. I'm so sorry. There's something I have
mm,
to deal with. I'll be right
yeah,
back.
that's okay. I'll keep
Keep going.
going. Then on the 9th, Mercury will station retrograde at 6 degrees of Sagittarius and start traveling back into Scorpio. And Mercury, I don't fear Mercury retrograde, but what Mercury retrograde does is um, asks us to slow down and revisit. And I think things that maybe we haven't seen yet will come back to light. We'll maybe have to go back to the book where we started, and maybe names will start to be released. We'll see. But either way, Mercury's going retrograde, revisiting, redoing all those things, and all things to do with communication, truth in Sagittarius as well, and freedom. Anyway, also on that day, nothing else. Yeah, I'll move on. On to
And she's
November the
back.
10th. Hi.
I
I just
apologize.
I just talked about Mercury going retrograde, so
Okay.
I kind of covered that, I think. So the Sun on November the 10th will actually make a water grand trine. If you can see, it kind of loosened a little bit for a while as Mars and Mercury moved on, but now the Sun is joining the party. And it starts with an exact water grand trine to Centaur Nessus, revealer of abuses of power. The buck stops here. We've had enough. He's been very active, to be honest, because people are starting to have had enough of all the abuses of power, right? And so the sun starting to join this party is really going to reveal more, and people are more and more going to stand up. We keep hearing stories of more people kind of starting to see the light and saying, no, this isn't cool. I've finally had enough. Can't happen soon enough, but hey, whenever it happens, it happens. Any more to say on that?
Uh, what's it? No, I don't. Thank
No.
you.
No, on to the 11th, Jupiter stations retrograde as this water grand trine starts to strengthen again as the sun moves forward. And so, stationary planets are usually kind of very potent and more powerful. So all of this water grand trine energy is really kind of being activated by these slower moving planets. Saturn has also moved back to the degree it will station direct at later. So, more revisiting, more things coming to light, more big revelations, more reveals. So Jupiter will station retrograde. There you go, November the 11th. But in an almost exact trine to Saturn, which is really interesting. So that speaks of tidal waves to me too.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And Saturn's going
So
to stay at that degree till the end of the year. So
yeah,
whatever's that adds to the this isn't going away aspect to
hmm,
whatever is stirring.
definitely, definitely.
And
So
there'll
on
be big
to,
issues of who controls the money. Big issues of who
yes, there
controls the money.
will, there will. Interestingly, on to November the 12th, Mercury conjuncts Mars. Again, we started with that, right? So they can, Mercury's now Mercury's retrograde and stationary, and they meet again, this time at 6 degrees Sagittarius. So a repeat of that. On to November the 14th, which is actually King Charles' birthday. I always remember that because it was my father's birthday. And we're going to look at Prince Andrew. So isn't that interesting? So on November the 14th, Venus over here, trotting along in Scorpio, but really disappearing behind the sun now, because when this Venus goes behind the sun from our perspective, she's invisible for about over 50 days this time. I did add it up, I think it was 51. And Venus aspects Pholus, that cause and effect, Pandora's box, Centaur. But then also Vesta comes up to the last degree of Sagittarius. Remember, she is the state, the hearth of the state, and squares Neptune. So more truths coming to light, fighting for justice in all ways. And then Vesta moves into Capricorn on the 15th. And on the 15th, Venus will square Pallas Athena, more fighting for justice. I'm not going to go overboard on those aspects, but on 16th, Mercury will move back to 2 degrees of Sagittarius and trine Ceres, which is almost exactly at that Venus star point degree. It was 2 degrees 33 minutes on March the 22nd. So again, back to March. Oof, morning, and Mercury's retrograde, revisiting things coming
More
back up
information
again.
about the role of other countries in our
Mm-hmm.
resources.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And various other things. Yeah. So yeah, 17th, and I'm nearly done. The sun has moved all the way up to 25 Scorpio, and look at this now. Remember, Jupiter is just stationed retrograde, so it's pretty much still at a standstill. And we've already mentioned that Saturn will be at this degree for till the end of the year. This is real. This is real tidal wave kind of energy, because Jupiter expands everything and Saturn kind of puts a brake on things, but that means kind of like almost like a dam, kind of pushing up against a dam, breaking. So Ooh, and a reality check as well with Saturn. And Mercury will revisit its sextile to Pluto. So, all those Mercury aspects being revisited. Only a couple more, then Mercury will move back into Scorpio on the 18th to finish the retrograde. And look, it's so close to the sun, and Venus is getting closer to the sun. Look at them piling up. And these are all the personal planets. The moon's joining the party there as well. We'll all be in the sign of Scorpio, which is really interesting, I think. So, because of the nature of what's coming up, secrets that are being revealed. I kind of do feel that the names are going to start leaking out. Do you?
I'm so sorry. There is a very loud noise
Oh,
outside, and it'll be gone in a minute,
no, we
and I
can't
can
hear it.
hear you in a minute.
We can't hear it. But yeah, but
Excellent. That's all that matters. Okay. Would you repeat your question?
I do think the names are going to start leaking out.
Oh, very much so.
Hmm.
What I want to say about
Mm,
the middle of November,
mm,
once the sun gets into that grand trine, it's
mm,
total immersion. It's
mm,
it and I want to caution people, you think things are insane now. No. So it'll be total immersion, and it's going to involve an awful lot of men and people in positions of power because of the sun being involved and because of
mm,
Saturn being involved.
mm-hmm.
Financial
Yeah,
industry, you name it. So yes, I do
yeah,
think the names, especially once we have the Sun Mercury conjunction, that's when all kinds of things become clear.
yes, which we're nearly at right now. So, but before that, on November the 19th, Mercury opposes Uranus again. And if you remember, we just had Mercury opposing Uranus, but that was at 0 Sagittarius Gemini. Now it's at the last or anaretic degree of Taurus and Scorpio. Resources, manipulation, power, secrets, values, all of those things, revisiting, things coming to light. Oof. And Mercury is almost conjunct the Sun again. And Mercury, before the conjunction with the Sun, will also trine Neptune, of course. So these anaretic liminal degrees are really powerful. And of course, this is the last degree of the whole zodiac, making it even
Mhm.
more powerful. And so on to the very last day that we're going to look at. And Mercury and the Sun will be cazimi. It's always said to be a moment of clarity, a moment where things come to light. I always do like to remind myself, though, that Mercury is behind the Sun when at this point. So, oh, sorry, is not, is it? Mercury is actually in front of the Sun, but Mercury is invisible. So that's actually good because Mercury is retrograde. Sorry, my bad. Remember, things get confusing with all this water. But I always kind of look at those positions because I think the sky matters, and Mercury is closer to us when it's retrograde. So who knows what that cazimi is going to bring, especially because Mercury has just opposed Uranus again. The exact cazimi, which the conjunction is 28 degrees 18 Scorpio. And that could be a day for things really kind of coming out in the news. What do you think, Kathy?
Both of those, the signs that are involve money, really
Mm-hmm.
big money, involve
Mm-hmm.
resources, involve
Mm-hmm.
women and sex.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then Uranus and Neptune exactly sextile at those anaretic degrees. They've been in this, that's an aspect of opportunity, and they've been in this ongoing relationship for quite some time and will be for months to come. But this is one of their exact aspects. You can see it. Oh, and look, it's 2929, the exact. I love my numbers. That's a master number, 1111, for those of you that love numbers. Anyway, celebrate that one. So, all in all, to say, this is just crazily intense with that cardinal T square that's in and out at the start and later, as we saw. But then this waterground trine that just keeps being activated over and over again is just huge. So, any kind of final thoughts on that before we just look at the other charts?
It may at times be overwhelming. It's going to be
Mm,
fairly inescapable. I have been encouraging people to pay attention to how your body feels
mm,
and to, like, if you have a cellular reaction to something,
mm,
respect the reaction and know that there's a terrific amount of information being shared that isn't going through the logical mind.
mm.
So there's a level of telepathy. There's also just trust your gut, all right? Trust your
Mm,
gut and know that everybody is soaking up everybody else's stuff, and there isn't
mhm,
anything out in the sky grounding it. So it's
mm.
imperative for everyone, more than we have been saying, to dump it out. You're going to be
Yes.
carrying a lot of stuff for a lot of people, not consciously necessarily.
Mm. It's
Well, dump,
collective.
dump, dump. It's
Yeah.
collective.
Find the, supportive places, because water's very emotional too. I think there's probably going to be a lot of grief as well, people feeling a lot of grief and loss about all kinds of stuff. I know myself just from friends and family, other family. So far, luckily, I'm, not been experiencing it, but I'm holding the space for them. Are, old stuff is being revealed, real old trauma stuff that's usually being activated by something else happening in their lives. So even it might be the collect. I know we're here on these videos looking at the collective, but this is happening at the personal level too. And Kathy said, things coming from the subconscious. I've got a really good friend here, and I woke at 1 o'clock in the morning, not last night, the night before, and I said, she's not okay. She's not okay. So I literally just
Ooh.
called her and said, what's going on? You're not okay. And she just burst into tears, and it all came spewing out. It's so you might find experiences like that where you just know that people need something, and if you can support, be the support, but also make sure you're getting the support, I think, as well, for all the things, right? So, who's chart first? Randy Andy or?
Yeah, let's start with him because the Water Grand Trine is just, it's going to be amazing what we see
Mm,
happening with him.
well, this is Prince Andrew's chart, so I'm just going to, look at it before I put the transits round. And I do invite people to look at the degrees. I have included the centaur because remember we had a lot happening with that cardinal square and other things, the water grand trine at the 24-25 degrees mark. And so he's got Mars over there as well. And his nodes hugely. So, we'll look at all that. But I did want just to point out how much he's got around 25 degrees. So that's Nessus, his south node, Mars, Venus, and Ceres, and Jupiter, I'm going to say too, and the moon, his north node, is being hit all over the place. So, which chart would you like round the outside first? The new moon one, just to
The
kind of,
Libra new moon. Yeah, the
yeah.
Libra new moon sets the
Mm,
stage for what
yeah.
is happening.
So, the Libra new moon was right down here, very close to his IC, the very bottom of his chart. But also, there's Jupiter, Chiron, and Eris already at that 24-25 degree mark. Saturn, as we have looked at, is about to move back to 25 degrees on his south node. Cassie does a lot of work with the royal family's charts. She has another. Are you inviting people to that group if they want it on Facebook?
Those are people who've been in my
Oh,
royal
so
royal family royal astrology group. I do have a group, but it's people who have worked together looking at their
mm,
charts over a
she's
number of years.
she
And
does
it's not that I
webinars
particularly,
occasionally. So
yeah,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
it's because to my thinking, their charts live out
Mm,
astrology so
oh,
dramatically. And this is an incredible example because we have the North Node where things currently are, right
mhm,
smack on his Mercury, and in the eighth house, which is sex, among many, many other things.
mhm.
And we have a voice from the grave coming out. And
The
his
house
life
of
is
death,
about
really.
life,
So the house of the grave,
really.
you could say. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
and
Mm,
and so the fact that the new moon is that close to his IC, to the doorway, to his career, home and career
mhm,
axis, home and public life axis, means this is a new phase in where he lives. I mentioned people are
mm,
upset that he's been living rent free for 20 years. A new phase in his role in the family. He's been told to get rid of his titles, his new
mhm,
public life. And there's an inescapable with Chiron and Eris up there, right smack at the top of the chart. There's an inescapability to this. Uh,
mhm.
the and more and more and more coming with Jupiter in Cancer from the 12th.
Yeah. So all
So
of that's, activated kind of on the new moon, almost to the day, right?
almost to
It's
the
kind of,
day.
yeah. And if you, look at it as square to his Mars Venus series as well, that new moon was, which, you know, you could look at that as, interestingly, Epstein has a Venus Mars conjunction too in his chart. So do a couple of other people, but I'm not going to. And Ceres, which is needs met and unmet in Capricorn. Kind of I don't know if ever I've started listening to her book. Some of it's been, excerpts have been out. It's quite harrowing, but I feel like I should read it and or listen to it rather. He felt like he was entitled, so his sense of entitlement to have power over these people is really reflective of what's coming out under this, right? Hmm.
And spoiler,
Hmm.
Mars as at 27, well, that little cluster right there is going to be reactivated when Uranus, in his most public house up there in the 10th house,
Hmm.
scoots back into Taurus, and it will gradually get to 27,
27.
exactly trining it. So this
Hmm.
is not going away, and it's going only be more and more disruptive, and it's going to harken back to late spring, early summer, when
Mm.
Uranus moved across those degrees for the first time. So there's more to that story coming out. But what I find even more fascinating than all of this is what the water grand trines are doing to him. Do you have
Mm.
more to say about this before we get to those?
I just wanted to mention that his Chiron is also at 27 degrees, his natal Chiron in the seventh house of open enemies, but it's also really on the cusp of the eighth house, I would say. Again, that kind of, voices from the grave, from other people, I think is coming to
Mhm,
light. And Nessus is right there as well, right on his Mercury. That's that buck stops here about abuses of power. So much
mhm.
happening to him. So where do you want to take it for the Water Grand Trine ish? What
Well,
date? I can't go through them all really. We haven't got time.
well, we can just sort
Hmm.
of look at what's going to be happening from
Mm.
this. Notice that he
Hmm.
has a 25-degree Scorpio moon.
Hmm.
So he natal, and he also has a 24-degree uh, Pisces South node. So this is static as other things move through. All right.
Hmm.
And so he's already got this flow in his chart, and it's grounded through what he should be doing, his North Node in the healthy North Node in Virgo. But as all of these planets move across his moon, Mercury and then Mars and then the sun, they're going to just keep bringing more and more and more and more and more. And it's in his ancestral home. It
Hmm.
involves his residence. It involves his relationship with his family. There are things that are not going to survive this.
Oh, And to go back to that North Node, it is what we are aiming to do more of in our lifetime in many ways. But I always think of this aspect when I look at it, of how it's happening to him, goes back to that sense of entitlement that this guy has had. He's going to be humbled. That's a good Virgo word. He's kind of going to be brought to his knees. you know, he's, humbled in more ways than one, shall we say. He could
There
do
were
good with
there
it,
were
but he won't.
times. No, and there were times uh while his mother was alive when things kind of got swept under the carpet, but there's
Mm.
no more sweeping under the carpet with this. None, none, none.
No, no, none at all. It's just going to keep coming out, you know. Um, so
Well,
if
it's
you haven't
important
read
to,
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, it's also important to note that this Chiron Eris combo at 24-25 Aries is in an adjustment aspect to his moon, and the moon in Scorpio does not like to let go, and who knows what kind of vindictiveness it's going to unleash from him, but
Hmm.
we just keep saying, and we mean it, it's not going away.
Going away. No. But also, I see these as kind of players in the collective in many ways. And just looking at how his nodes have been activated, they were, how he's just had that reverse nodal return, and how the collective nodes are in those signs at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of people kind of looking back at the time, because I called him Randy Andy right at the start of this. Clearly, I grew up in the UK. We used to kind of celebrate that playboy kind of like abusiveness and things. And I think as a collective, we are looking at that as well, how we thought it was okay, really, while all this really sordid stuff was going on underneath, which is in her book. So, you know.
I have one more thing I'd like to add
Mm,
before we put somebody else's chart in this.
mm,
That 24-degree uh, Virgo North Node is hearkening back to March because there was
mm,
a lunar eclipse at 23 Virgo in the middle of March. So this is once again bringing, and I don't remember what his role in anything was in March or what was going on with that, but there's
mm.
there's another callback to that time.
Well, it could be something as much as, because Mercury and Venus stationed direct back then as
True.
well, and the eclipse pretty much on his south node. Could be as
That could
much
be.
as, when did she die by suicide, Virginia? She was sending out all her messages, I think, at that time to the ghostwriter, to other people in her family, saying, I want this published, I want this published. And I think it was early April she actually took her own life then. So all
That would
that
fit.
was going on underneath. So that really fits, doesn't it, really? So,
Mhm.
yeah, isn't that interesting? So, shall we put
Who
her
would you like to
chart
add?
around now?
Yeah.
Yeah, she had, oh, her life was terrible, poor girl. Anyway, this is her and Prince Andrew. So, do you want to go for it first this time? Mhm.
I have a few things I noticed. If I can read my notes,
Do you want
there
me to
is a
put the new moon round the outside, or just remember that the new moon was here? So,
we can start with remembering that
mm,
because okay, so
mm,
Saturn Pluto,
mm-hmm,
that's
mm-hmm,
that's glue from the grave. I'm so sorry. That's
mm,
that. That's the I am not going away. It doesn't matter that I'm dead. Are not escaping me.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and but there her Uranus and his Pluto, I think have something
There's
uh
her urine. Yeah, they are square.
they're square. Her Uranus and his Pluto are square, and her Venus and his Neptune. Her Venus is 8, his Neptune is so her Venus and his Neptune are sextile.
Mm. But So they are, but also, her Venus is retrograde and pretty much on his Pluto. So there's another kind of Pluto connection. And
Hmm.
Venus and Pluto are both about kind of desire in many ways, and also kind of like sexual desire, physical desires, and soul desires. And so, um, from what I've read in the book, he wasn't like an unkind lover like some of them. Like some of them, the the violence is horrific of the ones that have not been named yet. But she was underage. She was underage. She was still young when he had sex with her, and she talked about that sense of entitlement. So that's that kind of bodily sexual power over desire kind of thing
Hmm.
connected. um yeah, it's and Neptune on his Jupiter too. mm. Oh, yeah, so they did have definite connections. I think they were. Oh, her son on his Uranus too, pretty much.
It was exciting. Woohoo!
Yeah, for him at least.
For him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And I don't think they have quite the same kind of karmic ongoing connections, except that this new moon has brought out the secrets and things.
Hmm.
So and Giuffre, when you add Epstein in, it's just all like whoa. So we could just add Epstein to Andrew if you want.
Sure, let's do that.
Mm, because we keep telling you that his chart is living on. And immediately I just see that his Epstein's South Node, the past, is right on Andrew's ascendant. So they were destined almost for this to kind of come out. That's one thing that leapt out at me. Um,
Well, look at his seventh house cusp. Look at that
oh,
seventh house
sorry.
cusp.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the North Node and Pholus, is that Pholus?
Yep, that's Pholus. Mm-hmm. But
So
also Epstein's Venus Mars. Remember, I said they both have a Venus Mars conjunction, Andrew and Epstein. So that signature is in both their charts. But Epstein's Venus Mars conjunction is conjunct Andrew's Mercury, which, as Kathy pointed out when we looked at the new moon chart, has the North Node on it right now. Whoa.
well, and Epstein's North Node on Andrew's Pholus is part of his purpose was to reveal what Andrew did, although he was the
Mm-hmm.
one who facilitated it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, but then there's also this Juno asteroid here with this, which is on there. That's it's kind of to my mind, looking at kind of the bigger picture beyond just the individuals, is kind of looking at all these contracts all these people had with each other, because we
Hmm.
know that this was a big network. Kathy mentioned, what was the guy's name that you mentioned your news
Michael
report?
Wolff.
Uh,
Michael Wolff.
no, the Leon Black, that one.
Oh, Leon Black. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So all these kind of contracts between people are starting to really be revealed, right? So with all this water energy. So those, again, I think these are the bigger kind of karmic connections that were not going to go away
Right.
after Epstein died. His Epstein's Chiron is on Andrew's Saturn. Really, his Pluto is on his Uranus, pretty much, because that's,
Hmm.
they're big energies. It was always going to kind of chicken's going to come home to roost one day. And we've known for a long time, just nothing was done about it, right? Now it is.
Yeah.
mm,
Now it is. Right.
mm, yeah. Well,
Okay.
more to come. Yeah.
Involving
But
water.
they,
So, island
oh,
stuff could be back
oh,
in the news.
oh, yes. Logs, release the files. Anyway, either way, it's going to come out because, as Kathy said, the ghostwriter says she's stored all the tapes very safely. So, she's got those in her hand and they've got all the names in. And then we had all the other accusers say that they were going to compile a list too. So, yep. All righty.
Okay.
Anything else from you, Kathy? I think we gave our
Um,
lecture about looking after yourself, so we'll repeat that.
well, there's one other thing I want to mention. All right. We do not know when the budget situation is going to get worked out.
Mhm,
Um, there's governors have been told to not pay food stamps as of November 1. Who knows what will happen with any of this? There, there is besides taking care of yourself, since we have all this
mm,
water connecting us to everybody else, I encourage people to think about what you can do to not only shore up your own base, but what can you do to assist people in your community? And
mhm,
there's a really interesting person on social media named Gina Luker. Her handle is Shabby Creek
mm,
Cottage. And she has decided that she's going to put up her, the free little libraries that people have. She's putting one up with general supplies and canned goods.
mm,
And she has in her latest blog post, and I will stick the link to it in the description on my channel, Professional Aquarian. She has a link of like 12 different things that somebody could very easily do to step in and create more of a support network for people in their community.
mm. Yeah, I've heard of people doing that before, like having a free fridge somewhere, help yourself kind of thing. But I think more people will be encouraged to do that during this, or the food banks or whatever, you can do. But also, if you haven't got the money to help other people or the resources to go back to Taurus and Scorpio, time's a good resource too. So,
Right,
yeah,
right. And her suggestions are not just financial ones.
yeah,
So
yeah.
think about what you can do
She's
to
awesome.
help people out. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. All righty, but also put your oxygen mask on first.
absolutely. And watch the Halloween candy. There's going to be some real munch encouraging aspects coming up
Oh,
at the end of
I've
next week. So,
I have felt that Jupiter in Cancer, have you? I've
oh
been
yeah,
hungry. I've just been hungry. And Cancer
carb
is
loaded.
literally the stomach, people, by the way. So I'm going to go on a bit of a after my trip. So I'm away next week. After my trip, I'm going on cutting a few things out because I'm better if I cut them out completely. Then I don't
Mm,
crave more. Just
mhm.
while this is all going on. All right, people. See you
All
later.
right.